Welcome everyone to part 2 of the BJC Social Studies 2019 past paper review. I'm happy to see all of you here. So now we're going on to section B, and this includes the map questions. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so this includes the map question. There is usually a map of the world, a physical map of the world, and then a map of the Bahamas. So the first section, section B, let's look at the instructions. It says, look at the map of the world and match the correct letter in column B with the correct number. Let's take a note, with the correct number in column A. Each correct answer is worth 1 mark. Let's look at column A and column B. All right, so here is column A, where we're going to put the numbers on the line, and this is column B. So on this paper, they've given us a little bit of clues, and let me just get my pointer. Okay, so they've given us some clues right here so that we have an idea of what kind of landform it is. So they've given us bay, city, continent, sea, etc., which is a clue. So that helps us out. And over here in column B, these are the names of the different landforms. Now, before we begin this section, I would advise you, when it comes to this map, let's turn it around. My suggestion is that you first locate the numbers on the map. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to locate the numbers and highlight them so we know where they are. So let's start with 1, 2, 3. Let's see. I don't see 4. Does anyone see 4? I know it's there. So that's 5, 8, 10.
The Bahamas.
Oh, right. Okay, thanks. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is right there. So that's a good reason to first find the numbers so that you're not fumbling when it comes time to answering the question. So we've located the numbers, and now let's go and look at the first question. Number 1 is a bay. Let's look back at that. So number 1 is right there. You can show by a raise of hands. Who would like to answer that question? Okay, I'll ask Jonathan.
Hudson Bay.
Yeah, that's Hudson Bay. That's correct. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to find Hudson on this. And Hudson is, let me zoom up. Which letter? Okay. F, right. So we'll just put an F on that line. Okay, the next one is a city. Number 2 is a city. Let's see if we can find out what city that is. So number 2 is right there. Who would like to answer? Show of hands. Does anyone? I don't see anyone with their hands up. I don't know if I'm just not seeing it, but does anyone have their hands up? Which city is that by number 2?
Please go on to the answers, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, okay. So Nisha answered. She said Cape Town. Yeah, it's Cape Town, which is J. That is Cape Town in South Africa, everybody. So we'll just put a J right there. Okay, the third one is a continent. Let's take a look at number 3. Number 3 is right there. By a show of hands, who would like to answer that? Okay, Eden, would you like to answer? I see you have the clap hands. If so, you can answer, Eden. I'll go back to
Europe.
Okay, yes, so G, that would be G. Okay, the fourth one is a C. Number 4 is right there. A show of hands, who would like to answer that? Number 4. Those are the options. Okay, I'll ask Annabella.
Caribbean Sea.
Yeah, that's the Caribbean Sea. And which letter would that be? It's B. Yeah, it's B. Okay, number 5 is an ocean, a body of water. Number 5 is located up there. By a show of hands, who would like to answer? I'll ask Megan to answer that. Number 5, Arctic, that's right. So that's H. And number 6 is a strait. Let's find number 6. Right there, down there. Okay, those are the options. Who would like to answer? I'm seeing, okay, Sama.
Magellan, right?
And that would be C, yeah. Okay, and number 7 is a desert. Let's see where that desert is located. There it is. I'm going to the possible answers now. Which desert could that be? By a show of hands. Shay or Che Hannah, you can answer. It's not the Sahara. The Sahara Desert is located in Africa. Number 7 is on this continent right here. So you want to try another guess? It's also not Great Victoria. Okay, how about Eden? Would you like to answer?
The Kalahari.
Yeah. And the Kalahari is M. Now we're looking at an island. Number 8 is an island. Which island could that be? It's right up there. Now I'm going to the options. Jonathan?
Iceland.
Yes, it's Iceland, so that's E. All right, and number 9 is a peninsula. Let's go look at 9. So it's right there. Number 9. Which peninsula could that be? By a show of hands. Okay, I only see Jonathan's hand up again, so you can go and answer.
York.
You said York? No, that's not York. Let's take a look at it again. Number 9 is located right there. Let's use a green lights. No, not green, red. Number 9 is located right there. Anyone else want to take a guess? By a show of hands, you can raise your hand. Okay, so number 9 is located in the southern part of Asia. Number 9 is the Malaysia Peninsula or the Malaysian Peninsula. So that's A. And number 10 is a line. Which line is number 10? By a show of hands. Eden?
The equator.
Yep, it's the equator, so we'll put I. Okay, so you'll just put the numbers on the line when you find the answer. All right, now let's head to section C. This is a map of the Bahamas. And when I look at the past papers, most, if not all of the past papers use this exact same map. So before you answer the questions that are these 10 questions right here, my suggestion is to get familiar with the map and to understand what's going on in the map. Let's take and see what's going on. All right, so I'm going to point to some things and I want you to tell me what they are. What is this? You can put it in the chat or you can say it out loud.
Is it a compass?
Yeah, that's a compass. So we see the compass, so that means we know where north is on the map. Okay, we know where the directions are. All right, and what's underneath the compass? What's this right here?
The kilometers.
Bridge.
Someone said something about the kilometers. What else did I hear?
The key.
The key. Yeah. So this is the key or the legend. And then we have our compass. What else do we find on this map? What is this thing down here?
A scale.
Yep, that's our scale. And let's go back to the key. What do these represent? These two squares, this white square and this square at the bottom that's shaded in, what do they represent on the map?
The depths of the water.
Yeah, it represents the depths. And I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can see. It's telling us that where the location is white, the depth of the water ranges anywhere from 0 to 600 feet or 0 to 183 meters. And where the map shows the darker areas, it ranges 600 feet and deeper or 183 meters and deeper. And this dot here represents the settlements. So let's get familiar with the actual depths of the water. So looking at the map, I'm just going to draw a line to outline it because this map is kind of faded a bit, but this is the areas that would represent the white areas on that key. All right, what is this area called right here?
Great Bahama Bank.
The Great Bahama Bank, yeah. And this little portion of bright area up here, what is this?
The Little Bahama Bank.
Yeah, it's the Little Bahama Bank. So we've made ourselves familiar with that portion of the map. And again, like I said, this dot here represents the settlement. So every main island has a dot on it. And these dots represent the main town or city on the different islands. You will need to know what those main towns and cities are for all of these islands in the Bahamas. Okay, the map also has something additional along the sides. Okay, there are numbers along the side that run horizontal. There's 80 degrees, 79, and goes down to 73. And then along this side, we have 22 degrees going all the way up to 27. What are these degrees, these numbers? What do they represent?
Coordinates.
Any other guesses?
Longitude lines.
Yeah, so it's both the longitude and the latitude lines. The lines of longitude, they run long, all like from top to bottom. That's how I remember them. They run long. And when I think long, I think vertical, so top to bottom. And the lines of latitude, they run horizontally. So there they are. So those degrees, those numbers represents the degrees for the lines of longitude and latitude. Now, someone said grid reference. There are also grid references here. And so these letters, A, B, C to H, actually to I, and numbers, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, they are grid reference letters and numbers, okay? And of course, there's the scale. Now, this scale is measuring in both miles and kilometers. Let's zoom in to see that. So when we want to calculate the miles, we'll use these numbers at the bottom here, 0 to 125. And when we want to calculate in kilometers, measure in kilometers, we'll use these numbers at the top here. Okay, I think we've looked at the map enough. I don't suggest that in the exam you spend that much time studying the map, but it's important that you know what's going on in the map. And hopefully They'll use the same map again this year, so you already know what to expect. So let's go to the first question. Give the name of the main settlement located 25.2 degrees north, 78 degrees west. 25.2 degrees north and 78 degrees west. You can raise your hand who'd like to answer that. Okay, Jonathan, you can answer.
Nicholstown.
Yeah, it's Nicholstown. And let's see how we got that answer. Let's see how we got that. So to find that settlement, we first look for 25.2 degrees north on the map. And those numbers, those lines represent the lines of latitude. So here we have 22 degrees, 23, 24, and 25. So 25 degrees is located right there, and 26 degrees is located right there. So that tells us that 25.2 would be located between 25 and 26 because that number is between those two numbers. So 25.2 would take us a little bit further up, maybe about there. And now we look for the 78 degrees west. And we can look at the numbers either at the top or at the bottom because they're the same. I'll look at the top because it's clearer for me. So 78 degrees west, that line of longitude is right here. So I'll mark that off. And now what we have to do, let's extend each of those points down and make a line. And where those two lines meet, that is the location of these coordinates right there. Does everyone understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so those two lines met right at that dot right there on Andros, and the town is Nicholstown. So Jonathan got that right. The next question is, the body of water between Long Island and Crooked Island is? Who would like to answer that? I think Danaya, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Pardon me if I'm not. You can answer that.
Is it Crooked Island Passage?
Yep, you're right. We're talking about this area right here. The map, they've put an arrow on the map to show that area. That's called the Crooked Island Passage. All right. And the next question is, give the name of the island northeast of Inagua. I'm just gonna write the answer in here. So give the name of the island northeast of Inagua. Let's look back at that. So let's first find Inagua, which is located right here. Who would like to answer that? Megan?
Mayaguana.
Yeah, it's Mayaguana. And let's see how we got that answer. For those of you who may not be sure. Okay, so this is Inagua down there. If we were to draw what looks like a compass and put in the directions, north, east, south, and west, we can then draw another line to represent north. Wait a minute, let's see. They said it's northeast, yeah. So we can put in another line to represent northeast. And we find that when we extend that line out, the island that is located on that line is Mayaguana. All right. Does everyone understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Number 4 says, which line of longitude runs through Andros and Grand Bahama? Remember, the line of longitudes are the long ones that run from top to bottom. Who would like to answer that? Okay, Evans, you can answer that. Casio, I think.
It didn't have me on this.
Okay, let me see. Okay, your hand, let me unraise it if possible. Lower hand, okay. Does anyone else want to answer that? Anyone?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Let's go back to the question. Number 4, which line of longitude runs through Andros and Grand Bahama?
Is it 78 degrees?
Okay. It is 78 degrees, but there's something missing from that. Do you know what it is? All right, it's 78 degrees and then the direction. So it's 78 degrees west. Let's find out how we got that answer. So we're looking for the line of longitude that runs through Grand Bahama and Andros. And the only line that runs through both of those islands is this line right here. And that line is the 78 degrees west longitude line. Does everyone see that?
Yes, ma'am.
The next, okay, good. The next question is, the shallow body of water in square C8 is called the shallow body of water in square C8. Let's look for the square C8. DeMarco?
Is it the Little Bahama Bank?
Yes, absolutely. Let's see how we got that. So first we look for C on the grid reference line. So at the bottom we have A, B, C. So C is located there. And it says C8. So we look out for 8. 8 is located, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. But 8 is located right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to find, all right, we're going to find where they meet. So this is 8. Like I said, 8 is here and C is here. So C is here and 8 is here. So they meet right there in this area right there where I highlight red. And that grid reference box takes us over the Little Bahama Bank. So that's how he got that answer. It says, name one island, latitude 23.5 degrees north, runs through. Name one island, latitude 23.5 degrees north, runs through. 23.5 degrees north. Who would like to answer that? Danaya?
Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island is one of them. Can someone name another? Jonathan?
Exuma.
Yeah. So how did we get that answer? First, we have to look for the latitude line that is located at 23.5 degrees north. And again, we'll look at those latitude numbers. We have 22, 23, 24, but it says 23.5. So that means it's halfway between 23 and 4, which is right here where we see this dotted line. So we'll follow that line. And the question is asking which islands that line passes through. And someone said Long Island. So yeah, that's correct. See, Long Island is right here. And then the line also passes through the southern part of Exuma. So if you put Exuma or Long Island, you would have gotten the answer correct. The next question, the distance from Alice-town, Bimini to Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera is, and then they give you the miles and kilometers. When you answer this question, I suggest that if you're answering this in miles, that you make sure circle miles, or if you answer it in kilometers, that you make sure circle kilometers, so that the examiner knows which unit you measured it in. So let's look for Alice-town, Bimini, and Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera, and then we'll measure the distance. Now, I know this would be a little difficult, impossible for you to do over the Zoom meeting. So I'll show you how to do it, and then you will help me determine the distance. So first, the first thing we must do is look for Governor's Harbor, Eleuthera, which is located right here, and Allenstown, Bimini, which is located right there. When you're in the exam and you're measuring distances, you'll need to get your ruler. Okay, so I have a ruler here. And now I want to mention the fact that this is a digital ruler, and the answer that I'm going to get is going to be different because it's a digital ruler, but the method is correct. This is the method that you're going to use. So I'm going to stretch my ruler out a bit. And then I lost my dots. Okay, let's just shade them in again. So now that we have the ruler, you're going to take your ruler and you're going to measure the length. Or what I like to do, I like to draw a line. So I like to draw a straight line from the two towns. Your line is going to be straight. Mine couldn't be straight right there, and now you can measure the length of that line. And I'm going to zoom in. I'd like you to tell me what is, I'm still stretching my ruler out a bit. What is the length of that line? Can you all see that? The length in centimeters.
6.
Yeah,
6 centimeters.
right. So I measured 6 centimeters between Allenstown and Governor's Harbor. So now we take our ruler and we bring the ruler down to the scale. I'm really trying not to alter the length of the ruler too much, but here's what we do. We bring the ruler to the scale and we measure out what 6 centimeters is equal to on the scale. So let's do that. On this scale, we line up the zeros, the 0 from my ruler right there with the 0 on the scale. Make sure they're lined up. And then we find 6 centimeters. Now 6 centimeters on my ruler lands right there, which just so happens on the scale to land at the end of the scale. So in this case, the distance would be the same as the length of the scale, which is 125 miles or 200 kilometers. If my ruler if it landed differently, like for example here, then the length would be less. It would be about 100, somewhere between 100 and 100. And so this point right here, hold on, make it. This point right here is the midpoint between 100 and 125. And if my ruler landed right there where this red mark is, it would be between the halfway point between 100 and 125. So the halfway point between 100 and 125 is what? Let's split 25 in half. What would this point be? You want to answer, DeMarco?
Is it 110?
Okay, so the halfway point between 100 and 125, that's 25 miles between here and here. So all we have to do is figure out what is half of 25. And
Is
half
it
of
150? I'm sorry, my bad.
so half of 25 is 12 and a half, because 12 plus 12 is 24, and then you add a half more. So this point is 112 and a half. But according to my ruler, I landed between 100 and 112 and a half. So I landed between 100 and 112 and a half. So that means it's 12, the distance is to be split between half of 12 and a half. I hope I'm not confusing you guys, but so the distance from here to here is 12 and a half. Once we find out what half of that distance is, then we'll figure out what we need to add to the 100. So half of 12 and a half is and a quarter. So again, if my ruler had, my 6 inches had landed here, then the distance between the two towns would really be 100 plus that 6 and a quarter. So it would be 106 and a quarter miles, because I'm measuring that in miles. Or you can give the measurement in kilometers. So that's the method that you would use. There's some inaccuracies, like I said, because it's digital and my ruler is fluctuating in size. All right. So I'll leave that there because it depends on, once you print it to paper, then you can get an accurate count. Number 8 says the name of the scale shown on the Bahamas map is, who would like to answer that? And give the name of this scale. For those of you who don't have a microphone, you can still answer. You can raise your hand and then you can type it in the chat and then I'll read it. So does anyone else want to answer? Give it a try. All right. So Megan, what's the name of that scale?
Line scale.
What did you call it?
A line scale.
Oh, a line scale. Okay. Let's look at the 3 types of scales that exist. All right, you guys can see it. So there are different types of scales. There's the word scale, which basically uses words like 1 centimeter equals 250 kilometers. And then there's a line scale or linear scale, which is on this map. Let's take a look at that again. Okay, but there's also another type of scale that's on this map. Right here, you see there's a ratio, 1 to 2,700,000. That's called a ratio scale or a representative fraction scale. So this type of map, this has 2 types of scales on it. It has a linear scale or bar scale and a ratio scale or representative fraction scale. Number 9, the main settlement on the island in square F5 is, so look for the coordinates, look for F, and look for 5. Who would like to answer that? The main settlement. DeMarco, you can go ahead. Oh, hold on. DeMarco, I'm gonna give, sorry, Miss or Mr. Turnquest a try. Shavazib. Do you want to answer that? F5. The main settlement in that square.
Georgetown.
Okay, let's look. We're going to draw lines and see where those 2 grid references meet. So F takes us this far, 5. So that's where they meet. So we're talking about this island right here. What is the name of that island?
Cat Island.
Yeah, that's Cat Island. And what is the name of the main settlement on Cat Island? It's not Georgetown.
Arthurstown.
Yeah, it's Arthurstown. Okay. The last question for this map is the direction from Rumkey to North Andros is, we'll have to first find Rumkey and North Andros. And we want to know the direction. Who wants to answer that? Turnquest, you have your hand up to answer that?
Northwest.
Yeah. All right. How did we get that? Well, from Rumkey to North Andros. Okay, so North Andros is located right there. And Rumkey is located right there. And we'll just draw a compass. North, east, south, west. And then we'll draw a line. And it is more northwest. As you can see, that intercardinal point would represent northwest. So that's one way to do it. Another way you could find that answer is to actually draw lines up. I mean, actually travel from Rumkey to North Andros on the map using straight lines. So you would go up, which is north, and then you'll go left, which is west. And so that's how you can also get northwest. That's another way to do it. So yeah, the answer is northwest. All right. So you guys did well with that. Now let's see how many of these questions we can get through for section D. Section D is the structured questions where you're going to have to give your opinion. You're going to have to give sentences, paragraphs, and really explain what you know about the different topics in social studies. In section D, you are required to only answer 3 questions. There's a total of 5 questions. Let's zoom in. There's a total of 5 questions in this section. There's D1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Candidates must answer question D1. That's the very first question. And then any other 2 questions from this section. So you're going to answer a total of 3. Be careful you don't try to answer all of them. I think if you did that, the examiner would probably mark the first 3. All right, so, but don't do that. The first thing you should do is read the source and then look at the picture and then go to the actual questions. So let's look at the source. Source A, it says an account of a shipwreck in Abaco. I'll read it to you. Nassau News wrecks. The federal cruiser San Jacinto got ashore at No Name Key, Abaco on the night of the 31st December and was totally wrecked. The crew were all taken off by the wreckers and safely landed at Green Turtle Key. On the same night and at the same place, the Brigantine sailing ship Princess Royal from Bermuda bound to this port was also wrecked. The vessel is totally lost. Part of the cargo, it is hoped, will be saved by the wreckers. The source is littlehousebytheferry.com. The good thing about these sources is that they kind of give you a bit of the answers to their questions in the source. So don't take these sources for granted. They help to give you a recap of what the topic is about. So if you had forgotten what wrecking was, maybe you confused it with blockade running or rum running or something. When you read the source, it picks your mind and you remember now what it is. So look at source B. It's a picture of a wrecked ship. Take a few minutes and during the exam, just a minute, and study the picture. When you study the picture again, it also helps to reinforce what the topic is about and what you learned in your social studies class. So what do we see happening in this picture? You can say it out or type it in the chat. What do you see happening? You can type it out in the chat if you don't have a mic. What's going on around here? Okay, someone said a ship is being wrecked. That's true, a ship is wrecked. There's a large ship that's being wrecked. It's not intact. You can see it's slanted. Things are happening. What's going on the ship?
The crewmates are panicking, trying to get everything off board.
Yeah, they're panicking, trying to get everything off board. And what's happening here? What are these smaller ship boats here for?
To collect everything they throw in the water.
Yeah, to collect the whatever valuables there are on the ship to put in the boat. And where are they taking that?
Back to land.
Yep, they're taking it back to land. Okay, so let's go to the questions. But now let's look at the questions related to the sources. So the question A says, who introduced wrecking to the Bahamas? Who would like to answer that? Oh, okay, we got a lot of hands, good. Denaya?
The Lutheran adventurers introduced
That's-
wrecking.
Yes. And I like the way you answered that. You answered it in a complete sentence, and that is what I would advise you all to do. So you'll say, the Lutheran adventurers I'm not going to write the whole thing. The Lutheran adventurers introduced wrecking to the Bahamas. So make sure write your answers in a complete sentence. The next one, what is wrecking? Who wants to answer that? Tiara, you can answer it. Would you like to answer that, Tiara? Wrecking is the salvaging of goods. Okay, I would add some more to that so that we know where the salvaging is taking place. So wrecking is the salvaging of goods from a wrecked ship or a wrecked vessel. All right. Number 3, wrecking became very popular. The government passed laws to govern it. List 3 laws used to regulate it. Who wants to answer that? All right, DeMarco.
No, Mom, my hand was up from the last question.
Okay. Anyone else want to list some of the rules, the laws that were put in place for wrecking? Jonathan?
The first person to arrive at the wreck was the designated wreck master.
Yes, the first person to the wreck was called the wreck master. Do you know any others?
The survivors of the wreck must be rescued.
Yeah, all survivors of the wreck must be rescued. In fact, all survivors of the wreck must be tended to before any of the goods are salvaged. So they were first priority. That was the main thing about that law. Any others?
The Bahamian men and boats should be registered first.
Okay. Yeah, they definitely had to register in order to become wreckers. Yeah, they had to be registered. But when the actual wreck occurred, there was some other laws as well that had to be followed. Anyone remember any smothers? What about how everything was divided up? What were the laws about that? So the crown received 1/3 of the value of all the goods. The crew also received 1/3 the value of the goods. And the wreck master, the first person to the wreck, he received 1/3 the value of the goods. Do you guys remember that?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right, now for the bottom here, number 4, sorry, for D, they're going to ask you agree or disagree questions. There's no real wrong answer as long as you explain why you agree or why you disagree. So if you can adequately explain yourself why you agree or disagree with the statement, you should be able to get the entire 4 marks. What you want to do before you go into explaining is you want to state at the beginning whether you agree or disagree. So the question is, wrecking can be seen as a lawful way of life. If you agree with this question, you would say, I agree that wrecking, and then you just continue the statement. I agree that wrecking can be seen as a lawful way of life. Or you say, I disagree. That way the examiner knows what to expect in terms of your supporting statements. So start by saying whether you agree or disagree. Now, how many of you, just by in the chat, you can type me. How many of you agree that wrecking can be seen as a lawful way of life? If you agree with that in the chat, type me. Okay, Eden and Nisha and Danaya, you agree that it can be seen as a lawful way of life. How many of you disagree with that statement? Just say, I do, or I. Okay. So some people disagree, some people agree. Now, I would like you all to just give me one reason. You don't have to give me the whole paragraph, because what we're going to do, we're going to compile our answers. We're going to brainstorm together as a group and get the best possible answers and learn from one another. So I would like you all to just tell me in a sentence, you can type it up in the chat, why you agree or why you disagree. Just type it up in the chat. It will take a minute to do that. Just one sentence why you agree or disagree. Okay, Jonathan said survivors have their loot stolen and they can't do anything about it. And I think it's not fair because the survivors should at least have some of their own loot. Yeah, that's a statement. It's fair. Cleanthea says the risk involved in wrecked can be seen as unlawful, especially because of the rise of injuries in the country. Okay. And Nisha says wrecking became so popular that the prime minister enforced laws. Okay. So even the prime minister enforced laws, so it could be seen as lawful. Eden says, I agree because they are able to share their valuables. Okay. Denaya says, I personally agree because once done legally, it can be a good way for people to get money. Right. Now, if we're talking about back in the past when wrecking happened, it was during very tough economic times. And that's one of the reasons why people jumped on the opportunity to wreck ships and make that industry so popular. Okay. Shavajip says, I disagree, as intentionally wrecking ships cannot be lawful, as people can lose their lives in the process, right? So to intentionally do it, yeah, it can be seen as unlawful. And okay, Cleanthea says wrecking can damage coral reefs. Absolutely, especially because a lot of the wrecking is done by the reefs, because the captains, the crew on the ships, they did not know the Bahama Islands. They didn't know the waters. They didn't know where the reefs were. They didn't know where it was shallow, and the wrecking was done around those areas. Any other reasons? These are very good, and I hope you can all learn from it and take it and consider. All right, so those are some good answers. Okay, it is 7:03, but I'm going to continue. For those of you who can't stay any longer, I want to thank you for joining me, but I will continue, and I'll continue and go through some more. Hopefully we can get it all done quickly. Okay, Annabella says, I disagree because brought from the wreck could hold diseases. Okay, yeah. All right, let's go to question. No problem, Annabella. Let's go to question D. This is about banking in the Bahamas. So I'll read the source, and as I read it, you can, I guess, pay attention to it, and then we're going to start. An account of the banking industry. The Bahamas' financial center offers a variety of services to the international community. These services are being strengthened continuously through the government's partnership with the private sector. The government has reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining and improving the Bahamas' role as a sophisticated offshore finance center through the introduction of new and innovative legislation and the strengthening of existing legislation. The Bahamas is poised to offer opportunities to innovative, progressive investors. The financial services sector is a haven to such investors. So you guys see the quality or the level of the text that they put here in the sources and what they expect you to be able to understand. Let's take a look at this picture. What is this a picture of?
Bahamas Development Bank.
Yeah, the Bahamas Development Bank. Does anyone know anything about the Bahamas Development Bank? Or what do you guys know about it? Okay. Lydia, you want to answer?
If someone is starting a business, that is what the bank they would go to.
Yeah. this bank, Bahamas Development Bank, would lend money to business owners. If they're starting a business, they'll also lend money to people who are already in business if they want to expand their business. Yeah. Okay. So question A, what is the definition of the word banking? Who wants to answer that? Okay, Eden had said it's one of the most popular and most used banks. Okay. It is very popular. So the definition of the word banking, Lydia?
A financial institute that caters to the public and private people.
Okay. Let's give it some more details. That's good. I like that you said it's a financial institute that caters to the public and private, but we need to add some more. I guess in a way, to tell us how do they cater? That would really finish that sentence up. How do they cater? What do they do for the public and private sector?
They make loans.
Okay, they give loans. What else do they do?
They allow you to save.
Okay, yeah, so they accept money for savings. They
Provide credit and debit cards.
Okay, right. So yeah, they help to bring about they create, how do I put it? They create an environment through which financial transactions can take place between individuals. So banking is the business activity of accepting and safeguarding money owned by individuals, organizations, or businesses. Okay, identify 2 types of banks that operate in the Bahamas. Who would like to answer that? Okay, Danielle answered. She said commercial and offshore banks. Okay, yeah, that's it. Commercial and offshore banks. That's 2 marks. C, the central bank is the most important bank in the Bahamas. List 3 reasons for its importance to the banking sector of our economy. Who wants to answer? Lydia, your hand is up. Do you want to answer that?
Sorry, I forgot to take it down from the last time.
Okay, no problem. Jonathan?
They store money
Okay.
and they let you make loans and checks.
Okay, now the thing is with this question, try and give answers that don't relate to any of the other banks, because something that distinguishes the bank, like 3 reasons why the central bank is important. Anyone have any other ideas to add to that? Christian?
Yeah.
You wanted to say something? You're unmuted.
No.
Okay. All right, so I'll give you guys some ideas. Now, the central bank lends money to the Bahamas government. So when the Bahamas government needs to borrow money, they can borrow from the central bank. Also, the central bank regulates and supervises the entire banking sector of the Bahamas. So they would supervise all of the other banks and regulate all the other banks. So that makes it very important. Also, the central bank controls the foreign exchange currency in the Bahamas. So, for example, I know it used to be like this a few years ago, I'm not sure if it still is, but if you have Bahamian dollars and you want to exchange it into American dollars at, say, at a bank, a regular bank, you would have to go to the central bank first to get some sort of, fill out some sort of form so that they are aware of what's going on, because they're regulating and controlling the foreign currency in the Bahamas. So they are a big part of that. I'm pretty sure they still are in some way. Maybe the process is more automated. So those are some reasons why the central bank is important. Now for number 4, Again, I would like you to type your answers in the chat. Whether you agree or disagree, you can mention it in the chat. D says the financial services industry is the second largest sector to our economy. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? Give reasons to support your answer. So you guys can type your answer in the chat. Let me know what you think. Yeah, Danielle said they regulate funds going in and out of the country. Okay, Jonathan, just tell us why you agree with that statement. Okay, so Danielle is saying, I agree, as tourism is the #1 industry. Okay, so you're saying that it's not the largest because tourism is #1. Banking is, Jonathan says, banking is very important to our country. With banking, we can store our money in a bank so we can keep our money safe. Yeah. Anyone else have anything else to add? Okay. So another reason someone, it allows us to prepare when we go to places to Florida so we can exchange money. I agree, because without tourism, Americans won't be able to change that money. Okay, so what I want you all to do is consider, okay, the financial service industry is the second largest sector. So I want you to, if you agree, then your statement should tell us why you agree that it is the second largest. Because we have other sectors in the Bahamas. We have fishing, we have farming, we have tourism. Why is the financial service industry the second largest? Without the money, our first industry, which is tourism, will not last, okay? So it supports tourism, it does, yeah. So the financial services industry helps to support the tourism industry as well. Also, how about the fact that it is also the second largest source of income for the country. So banking brings in the second largest source of income. Tourism would be the first, but banking brings in the second largest source of income. So that would tell us that it is the second largest sector. Also, these banks provide jobs for many people. It supports the financial needs of the government. And also there are hundreds of banks and trust companies that are licensed in Bahamas. All right, let's move on to the next question. This one has to do with the Constitution of the Bahamas. An excerpt of the fundamental rights and freedoms in the Bahamas Constitution. Whereas every person in the Bahamas is entitled to the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, that is to say, has the right, whatever his race, place of origin, political opinions, color, creed, or sex, but subject to respect for the rights and freedoms of others and for the public interest. To each and all of the following, namely, A, life, liberty, security of the person, and the protection of the law. B, freedom of conscience, of expression, and of assembly and association. And C, protection for the privacy of his home and other property, and from deprivation of property. I think that's deprivation of property without compensation. The subsequent provisions of this chapter shall have effect for the purpose of affording protection to the aforesaid rights and freedoms, subject to such limitations of that protection as are contained in those provisions, being limitations designed to ensure that the enjoyment of the said rights and freedoms by any individual does not prejudice the rights and freedoms of others or the public interest. Okay. And then the source is a photo, a picture of the 6th constitutional change in the Bahamas. So that statement right there gives us information. It tells us that we've had at least 6 different changes to the Constitution, and it has a date on it. It says 1973. So we can get some information from that. Let's go to the questions. What is a constitution? Who wants to answer? Eden?
A constitution is a contract made between the king or queen of the United Kingdom and a country that they're going under.
Is it always between the king and queen of the United Kingdom? What
The
about
other countries?
countries that haven't been a part of the UK? Would they have constitutions? Okay, any other questions? Not questions, any other definitions? It's definitely, I guess you can say a contract, but it's kind of like a law, like a book of laws. So a constitution is the supreme law of the land within a country. And by supreme, it means it overrides everything else. It's the topmost law. So whatever is written in the Constitution, that outlines the laws and even the rights of people. So the Constitution addresses all sorts of different things, including like the role of the police, the role of the schools, the role of parents in educating their kids, things like that. It tells you what you have rights to do, and it's the supreme law of the land. B says, name the first constitution for the Bahamas and state who designed it. Who wants to answer that? Megan?
The Bahamas is given internal self-government.
You said it was given internal self-government?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but what was the name of it, the name of the first constitution?
Oh, I thought that was two.
Oh yeah, go on,
Articles
B.
and Orders.
Yeah, that's right. The Articles and Orders designed by who?
The Lutheran Adventists.
No countries.
Yeah, William Sale, yeah. Okay, so for C, describe the changes of the following selected Bahamian constitutions. I think you were starting to answer it. I think it was Megan, was it?
Yes, ma'am.
So you're saying in 1964, that's when the Bahamas got internal self-government, that's right. And in 1969, what happened then?
The premier was turned into the prime minister.
Right,
But
right. So in 1973, what happened?
independence.
Right, so the Constitution was changed in 1973 to reflect a democratic monarchy. Yeah, and independence happened. Okay, we'll continue until 7:30. So that's like another 10 minutes, 9 minutes. All right, in the chat, let me know if you agree or disagree with this statement. The Constitution of the Bahamas needs to be modernized. If you agree or disagree, give me your reason, please, in the chat. So we'll take 1 minute more and let me know what you think. Should the Constitution of the Bahamas be modernized? Okay, I don't see anything in the chat. All right, so, okay. Cleanthea says, I disagree with this statement because the improvement of the Constitution will be unnecessary. The recent Constitution already provides all needs, so the revision of the Constitution is unneeded. Okay, I can expand on that a little bit. So there hasn't really been much changes to our government structure since the last Constitution. So there may not be a need to change the Constitution. Unlike countries like Barbados, you guys know what happened in Barbados recently?
No, ma'am.
Well, in Barbados, they were just like the Bahamas. They had a similar government under the queen or the king, but they got rid of the throne. They got rid of the monarchy and they became a republic government. And their prime minister, that post of prime minister, became extinct. They now have a president. And so because their government structure changed, it would be a cause for a new constitution, a new set of laws of the land, because a lot of things would have to change now. For example, there would be no need for a governor general to represent the Queen. So in the Bahamas, we haven't had any changes like that. So you may want to use something like that as an argument and say, well, maybe we don't need to change the constitution yet because we haven't really changed our structure. Any other ideas? I mean, some may think it does need to be modernized. Maybe with technology, there's room for it to be modernized. Maybe a part of it in education can be modernized because a lot of things have changed. Maybe the labor force, maybe the rules related to working can be changed because, you know, things have changed. For example, remote working is a thing now, and things like that. So you can look at both sides, just come up with a good reason why, and, you know, give it your best shot. All right, so we're going to quickly do social issues, unemployment. An account of unemployment in the Bahamas. The unemployment rate in the Bahamas and other countries is defined as the number of unemployed people as percent of the labor force. The labor force includes the people who are either employed or unemployed, that is, who don't have a job but are actively looking for one. The labor force does not include people who are not looking for work, children, and the retired. The unemployment rate seldom declines below 4 to 5%, even during boom times. There are always people who move between different sectors of the economy or between cities. When the economy goes into recession, then unemployment can reach much higher numbers, sometimes even in the double digits. Let's take a look at this picture. What's going on in this picture? You can put it in the chat or you can just say it out loud. These people are lining up. What are they lining up for? What do you think?
To be employed, to get a job.
Yeah, quite possibly to get a job. Look at how they're dressed. They're dressed in some of their best attire. This guy is wearing a tie and others are wearing ties. The ladies are dressed neat, you know, and not very casual, but more kind of semi-formal. And you notice they have things in their hands.
Resumes?
It could be resumes. Yeah, they all have papers and forms, so it could be resumes. So they're lining up. Okay. So define the term unemployment. Who wants to answer that?
Repeat the question, please.
We're looking at A, define the term unemployment.
When you don't have a job,
Okay, so unemployment would be, like someone said, when you don't have a job. Okay. Shavaza Turnquest, you want to answer?
The situation in which a person is capable of having a job and actively looking for one, but can't find one.
Right. What I like about that answer is that you mentioned that the person is looking, they are actively looking, but they can't find one. We can also take from the excerpt, the answer is in here as well. We can say, it's kind of in here, we can say it's the people who are actively looking for one, but who actually qualify, you know, not the children, not the retired. So people who are actually who qualify to work and are actively looking for one, but can't find it. List 2 factors that cause unemployment. What can cause unemployment? You can raise your hands to answer. Well, we just went through a pandemic. Was there unemployment during that time?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so things with the economy like pandemics, recessions, a decline in the labor force. So like if people leave a country or leave a location and go somewhere else, that could cause, I guess, unemployment rate. to increase. Also, natural disasters, they can cause unemployment. We've seen it here on Grand Bahama when there was Hurricane Jean and Francis, when one of the major hotels shut down and never opened back up. 1,600 people lost their jobs. So we'd say natural disasters. Okay, Lydia?
Viruses like corona.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, viruses, pandemics, that would fall under the same thing. Okay, any other options? All right, letter C. Unemployment creates many social ills. Briefly describe 3. Social ills are like issues in society, ailments, issues. You can raise your hand or type it in the chat. Okay, I see Danielle had said slow business. That I am assuming that's for B. That can cause unemployment, yeah, if business has just gotten slow. But what about C? What kind of social ills are created because of unemployment? When people can't get jobs, what happens in society? What happens to people? What do they do? Depression, yes. So there's depression. There's an increase in crime. There's financial hardships, family tension. Sometimes it causes an inability for people to pay for the things they need, like schooling, education. And sometimes there's also an increase in debt. Not DEATH, but DEBT. And yeah, Megan says they do illegal jobs. Yeah, so illegal work can then come into play, like trafficking and dealing drugs. All of those are good answers. Depression, stress, illegal work. All right. The last question, again, I'd like your opinion. The economy of the Bahamas plays a major role in unemployment. Do you agree or disagree? And give reasons for your answer. And Bella says anxiety. That's right. So let's take a minute to type in your answers for D. Eden says she agreed because there are not much jobs in the Bahamas. So the economy of the Bahamas plays a major role in unemployment. Yeah, so when there are not much jobs, there would be unemployment. Jonathan says with the lack of employment, people are depressed due to poverty. Okay, so with this question, what they're saying is that the economy of the Bahamas plays a role in unemployment. So they're asking you, they're kind of asking you if it really matters, if unemployment is related to what's going on in the economy. So in other words, is there more people employed or unemployed based on what's happening in the economy or not? Do they have an effect on each other? Okay, so they do have an effect. So the economy itself deals, when we talk about the economy of a place, we're talking about what's going on with the financial situation of a place, the movement of money, the movement of services, products, and the way everything just moves around. And when that's not happening, it could create unemployment. So if the economy is stagnant, if it's down, then it could create unemployment. If the economy is thriving, it's booming, then it creates a lot of employment, because a thriving economy means money is being spent. And if money is being spent, that means businesses have to be open to receive that money, and businesses need employers. Bella says, I agree, because a lot of business are supported by the government. And if the economy goes down, the business do as well, so causing unemployment. Okay. Yeah. If there's a decline in industries, for example, banking or fishing or agriculture, and those are segments of the economy, if there's a decline in those industries, then there would be an increase in unemployment. And also the economy of the Bahamas, we all know the main industry is tourism. So if the tourism industry is responsible for the employment, direct and indirect employment. And if tourism industry fails, it would have a negative effect on the economy, and many people won't be able to work. And also, when people in an economy are not spending money, for example, during a pandemic, then this could result in a decrease in a need for certain jobs. And if there's no need for the job, then there's unemployment. For example, during the pandemic, restaurants closed, so there was no need for no one to be a cook or a waiter in that restaurant, and so it created unemployment. Now, I hate to leave with just this one question. If you guys do have time for us to finish this last question, then I'll stay and we'll just do that. So I'll move on to the final one about the Renaissance. An account of the Renaissance. Between the mid-14th and mid-16th centuries, the people of Europe were experiencing great changes. The old order of rule by lords, barons, and kings, whose wealth and power was based upon how much land they owned, was changing, and people with money were becoming more powerful. I really like these sources because they help to bring back to memory what these different topics are, just in case you forgot. And here's an art piece. It's called The Creation of Adam. Okay, let's go to the question. The first question is, what does the word Renaissance mean? You can raise your hand if you know the answer.
I think it means rebirth.
Yeah, so Renaissance, it means rebirth or revival or a renewed interest in something. But you can use rebirth. That's probably the best answer. What effect did the Renaissance have on the church? Who would like to answer that? Okay, remember during the Renaissance, people came up with a whole new sets of ideas and they saw things a little differently. That's what's being recorded. And it affected how people in the church even viewed the church. So during the Renaissance, people began to see the world from what's called a human-centered perspective or humanism. This meant that they started to question some of the teachings of the church. And they started to develop a spirit of skepticism, like kind of doubting a little bit or being a little skeptical about what's being taught. People also began to pay more attention to this current life, meaning the time here on earth right now, and less on the afterlife. So those are some of the things that happened, the effect of the Renaissance on the church. Did you guys get that?
Yes.
All right. I would like you to answer C. Using the chart below, write the contributions for the following famous men of the Renaissance: Copernicus, Galileo, and Michelangelo. What about Copernicus? What was his contribution during the Renaissance? You can raise your hand if you want to answer, or you can type it in the chat. So Copernicus, he showed that the earth revolved around the sun. That's his contribution. Before, it was thought, or the teaching was that everything revolved around the earth. But he convinced people that the earth revolved around the sun. What about Galileo? Anyone know his contribution?
Telescope.
Yeah, he invented the telescope. He was an astronomer who invented the telescope, and he described the moons of Jupiter and the rings of Saturn. And then there's Michelangelo. What was his contribution? Who was he and what did he contribute? Okay, sorry, Cleanthea, I didn't see your answer. Yeah, you said also an astronomer. Okay, and mathematician? No, an astronomer. What about Michelangelo? What was his thing? What is he known for?
Art.
Yeah, he's known for his art. So
The
Michelangelo.
glass windows.
Okay, yeah. What else? He painted, but he also did what? Okay, someone said something in the chat. The Mona Lisa. Okay. So Michelangelo was also a sculptor too. The creation of the statue of David and Pieta or Pita, I don't know how to pronounce it.
And
P-I.
Pardon me.
Yeah.
I think he painted the Sistine Chapel.
Okay. So the creation of Adam, possibly that as well. All right, our final question. The Renaissance era brought about many changes. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? And give reasons for your answer. So let's take a minute or 2 minutes. Type your answer in the chat and we'll read it and share it. Annabella says, I agree because of the creation of the telescope and many other things that still have effect today. Yeah. Cleanthea, I agree with this statement because the Renaissance now helps us to view the world from a different perspective, not to mention the great inventions. Yeah. Shavazit, I agree as it brought upon many great inventions like the telescope, the compass, printing press, and more. I like that you use examples. That's good. If we take from question B, another reason you might agree with this statement is that the Renaissance brought about changes in attitudes, like the teachings towards the church. New art and architecture was developed. Also, new navigational instruments were invented and people became inspired to travel and explore the world. So this led to Christopher Columbus traveling to the New World and all of the history that come with it. So those are some of the things you can say if you agree with this statement. All right, everybody. Well, that's it for this class. I do hope you learned something and that you also enjoyed it. All right. Good evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right.